Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 289. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker with a fresh new haircut. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. I no longer have to blow dry my hair for the first time in 7 years. Well, not actually. Like, I had been blow drying my hair for the first time in 7 years. Now I don't have to worry about that. I'm rocking a sweet new Hawaiian shirt in honor of Andy Reid signing a franchise quarterback. I've got the hairdo now. I'm like refreshed and ready to go. I've got all this new energy, and I'm ready for the playoffs, man.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be great. Today, we're going to talk about the Patrick Mahomes signing, which you just referenced, and also our Super Bowl 55 picks, as well as playoff predictions. And then we'll talk about some Super Bowl odds pertaining to our playoff predictions. Before we begin, I should say, please hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the notification bell, like button, but subscribing is the most important thing. So that'd be great if you do that, or send this link out to anyone who might like football. All right, the Patrick Mahomes signing was absolutely enormous. I figured he was going to get the biggest contract in NFL history, and he did. I didn't think it was going to be $500 million, and that's what it turned out to be. Patrick Mahomes signed for 10 years, $503 million with $477 million guaranteed. Congratulations to Patrick Mahomes. Well deserved, I think. Also, congratulations to his agent, Lee Steinberg, his super agent, Lee Steinberg. Patrick Mahomes was, some people thought he's going to be a second-round pick, and he ended up going 10th overall. And now he's the best quarterback in the NFL, making the most money. So congrats all around. But the important thing is, did the Chiefs make the right move? What are your thoughts on this signing?
I think that this was the right move. You have to look at quarterback markets or quarterback signings pertaining to the market. And there's one big thing with quarterback signings that almost always rings true. You want to sign the quarterback sooner rather than later. The longer you wait, the more likely a mediocre passer is going to get more money. I mean, we've seen it with Washington Redskins with Kirk Cousins. They franchise tagged him a few years in a row, and then he ended up making a fully guaranteed contract, paying him $30 million a year. With the Minnesota Vikings when he hit the free agent market. And we're seeing it with Dak Prescott, too. He has the leverage now because he's playing on the franchise tag, and he can just say, someone will pay me this $30 million plus in free agency to get my services if you have to compete on the free market, so you have to pay a premium for me. But there are two big points on the Patrick Mahomes signing. One, the Chiefs got this extension done as early as possible. So even though the numbers are massive, 5 years from now, we might look back on this and say, wow, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes signed for only, $250 million moving forward. And that might look like a bargain. I know that sounds hard to believe, but, say Dak Prescott gets like $38 to $40 million on his next contract annually. That's going to make the Patrick Mahomes deal look a heck of a lot better because Patrick Mahomes is clearly the best quarterback in the league. He's just 24. He only has, I think, 36 total starts, including the playoffs, under his belt. So he should only get better, which is unbelievable to think about given that he just won a Super Bowl and has the most arm talent of any quarterback in the league. So I think the Chiefs did well to lock him up long-term now, and they didn't get themselves into a situation where, Patrick Mahomes is about to hit free agency and they, have to really, really pay up for his services. I think this is a good compromise of like, we're definitely going to make you the highest paid player in the league and in league history because you deserve it, but we're also not going to, like, as crazy as this sounds, we're not going to give you an absolutely absurd amount of money because I think we're going to see other quarterbacks not quite come close to this top level money that Mahomes is getting, but they're going to get close enough that it's going to seem like a bargain comparatively.
Yeah, I think for the rest of the league, for the 31 teams, especially the teams in the AFC West, like Mahomes has to be terrifying, really, because 36 starts, 2 years as a starter. He's the best quarterback in the NFL right now, and I'm not sure it's close. And 30, as you said, 36 starts. Like, what's he going to be like at 72 starts? Once he has more experience, he knows more of defenses. He knows more of the personnel. It's just amazing how great he is, and he has the potential to be the best quarterback of all time. He has that trajectory. Wouldn't surprise me if he wins 5 Super Bowls, 6 Super Bowls, something like that. I think the only risk the Chiefs are taking is, what if he gets hurt? What if he gets banged up, kind of like Cam Newton? He gets a lot of injuries or suffers a devastating injury, maybe like a back injury of sorts, like Matthew Stafford has now. there is some downside here, but I think if they didn't re-sign him, they would suffer the risk of losing him, and that would be even worse because, as I said, he's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Maybe eventually will be the best ever, and losing someone like that would just be horrifying. Like, you can't do that. I mean, if you have the best quarterback in the NFL, and like you I mean, you live in the New England area, you've watched Tom Brady for almost 2 decades, and you've covered the Patriots as well. So you know firsthand how great it is to have a franchise quarterback, or like the best quarterback in the NFL, because every single year the Patriots were in the mix to win the Super Bowl. And as long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy, the Chiefs will be in the mix to win the Super Bowl every year. Like, we're going to delve into our playoff picks and Super Bowl predictions. I imagine both of us will have Mahomes and the Chiefs going deep into the playoffs. And that's just going to be the case every year. And I don't think there's no price you can pay to have that. Like, imagine if you're the Bears, and I know they passed up on Mahomes. Like, how much would they pay Mahomes to be their quarterback right now? I think it'd be more than he received from the Chiefs. Like, these teams just so desperate for good quarterbacks, like, let alone the best quarterback in the NFL. So I don't think there was any price that the Chiefs could pay that would be too much for Mahomes.
Yeah, and you brought up the only risk being potential injury. And like, to that point, like, yeah, sure, it would hurt the team if Patrick Mahomes suffered a massive injury and they had to pay him long term. But the fact of the matter is, like you said, it hurts them more to lose him in free agency or something like that. And if Patrick Mahomes were to get hurt, even if they didn't pay him this much money, were they going to be that competitive anyway? Probably not. So you're just talking about, yeah, if he was to get hurt, it would be long-term, not a great thing for the organization. But I think you have to take that risk. He's just so talented. So props to the Chiefs for getting this done. I think this was a no-brainer move for them. And they look really good right now for letting him develop on the bench for 1 year too. I think that was an excellent decision, and one that was influenced by Lee Steinberg. And I know that's why he wants Tua to sit this year too, and just get healthy and learn the game, because it's clearly worked out for Mahomes. So we'll see if that becomes a trend moving forward.
Yeah, it probably should. I think it really depends on how good your offensive line is. That's a factor as well. And Mahomes, when he entered the NFL, like he even admitted it when I spoke to him ahead of the draft. He said that he was working on a lot of like the pro style stuff and like taking snaps on their center, which he didn't really do at Texas Tech. So he wasn't like a finished product coming into the NFL, and that's why the Bears didn't take him at 3 or 2. But it is, like I said, it's scary on like about how good he's going to be in the future. And I think you brought up a good point too about the other quarterbacks. I think this contract is going to be detrimental to some other teams, because it's going, like, if you're Dak Prescott right now, you're looking at the Mahomes contract. Like, obviously, you're not going to get Mahomes money, but whatever you were asking for before, you're going to ask for more now. You're going to be like, okay, I'm not going to get the $507 million that Mahomes got. Maybe I can get $250 million or $300 million. Like, and that's like ridiculous. Like, you can't give Dak Prescott that sort of money. So there might be an impasse of sorts there. But some teams might cave to it. What if the Cowboys are desperate? What if Jerry Jones is desperate and he's afraid he's gonna, he's obviously doesn't have. He's like in it to win it now. And like, if he lets Dak Prescott get away, he doesn't have an alternative. So he might overpay Prescott. I could see several teams falling into that trap and just really having terrible contracts.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to be watching moving forward, is how negotiations with specifically Dak Prescott go. Because I think the Cowboys are in a weird position where, like you said, they don't have an alternative to him. So he has all the leverage. I thought that Prescott was probably going to reset the quarterback market if he got an extension, just because of how the Cowboys seem to value him. I wouldn't pay him that much, but I think the Cowboys were going to. But now Prescott could conceivably demand $40 million a year and be like, I'm $5 million worse than Patrick Mahomes. And like, he could probably make that argument. I wouldn't agree with it, but if you set the number high, the negotiations are going to be in that like 35, 40 million range. So I think the Cowboys are particularly going to handcuff themselves if they extend Prescott, because they'll have so many resources sunk into offense that their defense will be hard to improve.
Yeah, I wonder what some of the other quarterbacks are going to get, like Deshaun Watson, who's I think a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like, what is he going to get? Someone on my Facebook wall joked that he would get, the Bill O'Brien would give him a 10-year fully guaranteed $720 million contract with an 11th year player option, which, you can't put past Bill O'Brien for doing that. I wonder how much Bill O'Brien would pay him. His contract coming up, Russell Wilson's next contract. These numbers are going to be massive. And, with Watson and Wilson, they're probably going to deserve the money they get. But then you have the Prescotts of the world, and quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins. He's going to be up in a few years as well. And some of the young quarterbacks too, who just haven't really lived up to it yet. So it's going to be ugly. I think there are going to be a lot of holdouts at quarterback, which could really hurt the teams, and it could lead to some Kirk Cousins type franchising, and then just some ugly contracts overall.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. This kind of reminds me of that summer where the NBA salary cap went way up and teams just had too much money on their hands and started throwing massive deals at players that didn't deserve them. I feel like teams are going to look at the quarterback market, say, hey, there aren't a ton of options out here. We got to retain what we have if they have like a solid quarterback, and they're going to overpay them. So we'll see what ends up happening there for sure.
Yeah. TJ says the Cowboys have Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, I don't like very much. I just watched the Bengals Patriots game from last year, and granted, Patriots had the best defense in the NFL, or at least one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. But Dalton looked so bad in that game. Like, he just threw an ugly pick six, and he was horrible. So I like, as much as I don't like Prescott, I think Prescott's definitely better than Dalton. Anyway, let's get to our playoff predictions. So we'll save the Super Bowl picks for last. I'm curious about who you have in the playoffs. And remember, we have 7 teams in each conference this year, which is new and kind of exciting.
Yeah, at first I wasn't too excited about the 7th playoff team because I was like, oh, it gives a massive advantage to the 1 seed. But, then I looked at like the playoff bracket I ended up with, and I'm like, this is going to be great. We're just going to have extra playoff games. And, 7th seed could hypothetically win if they get into the right scenario. So, yeah, I don't know. How do you want to go through this? Do you want me to list off my 7 AFC teams and then you can list off yours? Or
yeah, let's do that. Let's do in order our AFC seeding.
Okay, so I have the Chiefs as the 1 seed, Ravens as the 2 seed, Colts cracked the top 3. They're my 3 seed. The 4th seed is going to be the Bills. I have them just barely beating the Patriots in the division. They're 11-5. Patriots are 10-6. Steelers are my 5 seed. Patriots are my 6 seed. And I have the Broncos sneaking into the playoffs. They're a 9-7. I also have the Titans at a 9-7 record, but I think the Broncos won the tiebreaker, which I'm not sure what it was exactly. I think it may have been a head-to-head game from week 1, actually. So, yeah, that week 1 game is going to actually possibly have a massive wild card impact. So those are my 7 teams.
Yeah, it's huge. The Broncos have that game at home. Actually, it came down to that for me as well before the Patriots signed Cam Newton. And then it kind of like factored in. I had to include the Patriots. So for me, I also have the Chiefs number 1. The Colts are number 2 for me. Ravens are number 3. So I believe we flip-flop there. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills as well. Number 5, the Patriots. Number 6, the Browns, and number 7, the Steelers. So the Browns are I guess, the only team I don't have. You have the Broncos instead, which I can see. I like the Broncos this year. I just think that the Browns are very talented. Like they're getting Myles Garrett back from suspension. They had so much hype last year. They improved their offensive line, which was a big problem last year, and now it's no longer a problem. I probably. Odell Beckham should be healthier. We'll see about Jarvis Landry, but they're going to have Kareem Hunt the whole year, and their young corners are going to have more experience. I just think the Browns could finally live up to expectations, but then again, I'm counting on the Browns making the playoffs, so I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, I have them going 7-9. So they weren't too far off. In fact, they were actually 9th in the conference according to my numbers. So they were just a little bit behind Tennessee and Denver. My one concern there is the new coaching staff. I think they have a lot of talent, but a lot of people the year before thought like, oh, the Browns are poised to make the playoffs. And that was with a less talented team. But again, they were relying on a rookie coaching staff, and it was Freddie Kitchens, and it turned out terrible. So I'm thinking Kevin Stefanski may have some bumps in the road because he hasn't had a full offseason with the team. So I think they may start a little bit slower than they hope, and then catch fire a bit at the end of the year. So I have them. I had them 7-9. I think they could go 500. I could see 9-7. I just don't think they quite crack the playoffs this season, but I do think they have the talent needed to do it. I think they're more of a 2021 team for me.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're a 2031 team, given how bad the Browns have been over the years. They haven't made the playoffs since 2002. So I'm definitely going against history here, which probably it means I'm probably wrong. Again, I do like the Broncos for sure. They just I had them at 9-7 in my season previews, and then I changed it to 8-8 because I believe they play at New England earlier in the year, maybe like the beginning of October. And I had that as a win for Denver when Stidham was there. I just thought that the Denver defense against Stidham would be too much of an advantage for Denver. But now it's Cam Newton, and Newton should be able to beat the Broncos at home at least. So those are AFC seeds. What about the NFC seeds? How do you have the NFC playoff picture?
So the NFC, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the South and being the 1 seed. The 2 seed somehow ended up being the Seattle Seahawks. I have this weird thing where I always have the NFC South teams do really, really well, and they should be the top 2 seeds of the playoffs, but obviously that's not how the playoffs work. So Seattle went 11-5 and is my 2 seed. Packers are my 3rd seed. Giants, they make the playoffs, win the NFC East and are the 4. Saints are the 5. Vikings are the 6, and the 49ers sneak in as the 7th seed at 9-7. I've been pretty steadfastly predicting that the 49ers are going to start slowly off of a Super Bowl hangover. Like the loss is going to hang over them for a bit, and then they're going to kind of get jump started again and possibly make noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, I could see that. You usually see the Super Bowl loser have a hangover. I don't know why that is, but they typically underperform. So I think you could be right. But, given how talented the 49ers are, I think they definitely sneak into the playoffs unless they have a lot of injuries, which do you have happening? My seeding is number 1, Tampa Bay. So we agree on that front. My number 2 is San Francisco. So I'm more bullish on them. But I can see why you're bearish there. Number 3, the New York Giants. Everyone knows that I love the Giants this year. I think they're going to make some noise. Number 4, the Minnesota Vikings. I had them winning the division over the Packers. You have the Packers. Number 5, the Saints. Unfortunately, they had the 2nd best record in the NFC per my projections, but the rules say you can't have the 2nd seed even though you have the 2nd best record. So they're number 5. Number 6 is Seattle. So a little bit lower on them than you are. But it's Russell Wilson. You should get the team to the playoffs. And then number 7. So you have the Packers in the playoffs, but instead of the Packers, I have Arizona in at number 7. I think I'm pretty high on these teams with 2nd-year quarterbacks. Kyler Murray was up and down last year. He had some great performances. He had some stinkers as well. But DeAndre Hopkins should help a lot, plus more experience. I'm still sketchy about their defense, but Isaiah Simmons should really help a lot. So I think that'll be a nice boon for them. So I think they can sneak into the playoffs. All right. So okay. So who do you have winning the first round matchups then?
Okay. So my first round matchups, I have Bills versus Steelers. I have the Steelers beating the Bills. I think that the Steelers just have such a great defense. It's going to be hard for Josh Allen to move the ball on them. And if Big Ben's healthy, Steelers should win that game. I have the Ravens beating the Broncos. Broncos are going to improve, but they're not. I mean, they're the 7th seed. They're not quite ready to make noise in the playoffs. I have the Colts beating the Patriots. Unfortunately, I think Cam Newton gets the Patriots to the playoffs, but the Colts are just such a good, well-rounded team that they should, at home, find a way to beat the Patriots. The Patriots have enough holes that I feel like the Colts could exploit. And even if they have to use more of a ground dominant attack and not rely on Phillip Rivers through the air, at that point, I think Jonathan Taylor will have enough experience to get that done. I'm very happy with how my NFC matchups worked out because my first round matchups, we have Packers versus Vikings in the 3-6 game. So a divisional matchup. I have the Packers winning that one. Again, I know we differ on the Packers, but I just think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a great season. And I think Kirk Cousins ultimately won't be able to win on the road in Lambeau in the postseason. Saints versus Giants should be a very interesting game. While I like the Giants and I bet them as a Super Bowl underdog, I think that they're not going to be able to win the Saints yet. I think they still need more experience and better defense to ultimately compete. So I have the Saints winning that one. And I have the 49ers upsetting the Seahawks, 49ers being the 7th seed, another divisional matchup. Again, I think that division really could go either way for me. Like the 49ers could easily win it and have the 2 seed. I just had them starting really slow. But I think by the time the playoffs roll around, they'll be able to beat the Seahawks because the Seahawks are really just carried by Russell Wilson. And I want to just, to your point on the Cardinals, I could absolutely see them making the playoffs. I had them going 8-8. If they weren't in such a tough division, I think I probably would have had them cracking the playoffs this year, but I just couldn't quite get them in.
Yeah, and if this were still a 6-team playoff in each conference, then they wouldn't be in. But they got in as the 7 seeds, which should really help the third best teams in each division. And sometimes you see that, like sometimes you see a very stacked division, kind of like the NFC West this year. And normally the Cardinals would be left out just because they can't get in. But I think things have changed a little bit. It's not a guarantee that they'll get in at 9-7 or anything, but they'll definitely have more of a chance now that things have changed. And I agree. I think it's definitely going to be more exciting. Definitely better than 4 preseason games. So I'd rather have the 2 extra playoff games. All right, for me in the first round playoff matchups, the Bills versus the Patriots. I have the Bills sweeping the Patriots in the regular season, and I have the Bills beating the Patriots the third time. I think the big mismatch here is the Buffalo secondary versus the New England receivers. The Patriots have the worst receivers in the NFL. Like Cam Newton's mobility will make up for that, but the Bills have such a good defense that I think they can contain Newton and really clamp down on the receivers. So I think the Bills win their first playoff game with Josh Allen. I have the Ravens beating the Browns. The Ravens secondary against Baker Mayfield just seems like. I know the Browns beat the Ravens in Baltimore last year. It's kind of a fluke. The Ravens were missing a lot of players in that game, so they weren't quite themselves, and that was before they got Marcus Peters. So I think the Ravens have too much of an advantage. So Lamar Jackson wins his first playoff game. I have the Colts beating the Steelers. I feel like these two teams are kind of similar to and it kind of cool that both teams have quarterbacks from the 2004 draft. But I think that the Colts are a little bit better than the Steelers. I like that they're a little bit better on the offensive line. I think they're with DeForest Buckner. I think they're a little bit better on the defensive line. I think the edge rush goes to the Steelers, but I think, and plus I'd say the secondary goes to the Steelers, but I think everything else, the Colts are a little bit better. And plus I like Frank Reich a lot. So I'm going to give the Colts an edge in that game. In the NFC, the Vikings versus the Saints, and we know what happens when the Vikings play the Saints in the playoffs. It's karma from Bountygate, and the Vikings have beaten the Saints in the playoffs every single time since. So the Vikings take that one in an upset. The New York Giants versus the Seahawks. The Seahawks don't have that good of a pass rush, so I think Daniel Jones should be able to carve up Seattle's secondary, which might not have Quentin Dunbar. Now, if they have Dunbar and they can cover up the Giants receivers, I think that's going to be a nice boon for Seattle. But if Dunbar's out, that's going to be tough for Seattle to contend with the Giants. I love the Giants this year. I think they're going to be a big sleeper. And the 49ers versus the Cardinals. This is the week 1 matchup, Arizona at San Francisco. I worry about Arizona's offensive line versus San Francisco's defensive line. I think that's probably the biggest mismatch in this game. I think it goes to the 49ers, but I wouldn't count out Kyler Murray keeping this game close with his mobility and plus all of his great receivers. So that's how I have the first round playing out.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I think that's that definitely could shake out. I like the Giants over the Seahawks. I think if those two met, I would probably also favor the Giants. So Seahawks are lucky in my well, no, they're not lucky because they still lost to the 49ers. But, the Seahawks as the 2 seed was the weirdest thing in my predictions. I don't know how that happened, but it did. Anyway, here's my next round of predictions. I've got the Chiefs and the Steelers meeting. I have the Chiefs winning that one. I think the Steelers have a good chance to at least limit Patrick Mahomes because they have such a good defense, but I think Patrick Mahomes just can't quite be contained at the end of the day. He's like, you just have to outscore him, and I don't see the Steelers being able to do that. Ravens versus Colts. I have the Colts winning that one. I think the Colts are well balanced. I think that They have a better defensive line after getting DeForest Buckner. They can kind of exploit the weakness in the Ravens' interior line now that Marshall Yanda's gone. So I have them advancing to the AFC Championship game. Lamar Jackson getting his first playoff win the previous round, but he still needs a little bit more seasoning and more experience behind a worse offensive line before he can win multiple playoff games. Packers and Saints in the NFC is a 3 versus 5 matchup because I had a 7 seed win. I think the Saints are better than the Packers. I don't love picking the Saints outdoors at Lambeau, but I think the Packers are bound to crash and burn eventually if they're running solely on Aaron Rodgers fumes. So I will be going with the Saints in that one, and it'll set up a fantastic NFC Championship game matchup against the Buccaneers, who I think will knock off the 49ers. I think that's going to end up being an excellent game if that happens. That pass rush should test Tom Brady in that offense, but I think the Buccaneers' firepower should beat the 49ers secondary, because the one weakness they have is at the number 2 corner spot, and there are just so many pass catching weapons on this Tampa Bay offense. I don't think San Francisco will be able to fully contain them.
Yeah, that definitely is their one weakness. We saw them have trouble against Atlanta last year, late in the year, and so I'm definitely on board with that. I don't have that the playoff matchup, but I do think it would go the way you said. For my second round, I have the Chiefs versus the Bills, the 1-4 matchup. It's a good ride for the Bills, and I like their team. I think they have a chance if the Chiefs get injured, if Mahomes goes down, or if like several of his teammates get injured. But I do think it's going to be tough for Josh Allen to go into Kansas City and beat Patrick Mahomes. We saw Deshaun Watson have his chance last year. It didn't happen. Patrick Mahomes just makes magic happen in the fourth quarter. And to beat him, you have to get tons of pressure on him. You have to rattle him through 3 quarters, and then you have to outscore him in the fourth quarter because he's going to go nuts. And I don't think Josh Allen's quite there yet. Maybe he will be eventually in his third year. I think he's going to make big improvements, but I don't know. I don't think he's ready to win this game yet. Colts versus Ravens, I think it's going to be very close. I like the Colts defensive line against the Ravens offensive line. The Ravens that are great, maybe the best offensive line in the NFL last year, but they lost Marshall Yanda, as you said. And Marshall Yanda is a future Hall of Famer guard. And they had the Colts at DeForest Buckner in the interior. And I think that's going to be too much of a mismatch. So Colts versus Chiefs in the AFC Championship. For me in the NFC, I had the 49ers versus the Giants. I have the Giants pulling the upset for a couple of reasons why. One is something that you mentioned. The 49ers secondary is not that strong, especially if Richard Sherman, who's in his mid-30s now, takes a step backward. The Giants have so many receiving options, so I think that's going to be nice. They also have a good offensive line now with Andrew Thomas, Kevin Zeitler. If Nate Solder can stay healthy, that's going to be nice. So I think they could at least neutralize the 49ers pass rush enough that Daniel Jones can have a chance. So I like the Giants to pull the upset in San Francisco. And then the Vikings versus the Buccaneers, it seems like such a big mismatch. The Vikings got the upset over the Saints, and we saw that last year, and they went into San Francisco and got blown out. This year they go into Tampa and get blown out. I don't think the secondary can cover all of Tom Brady's weapons.
Yeah, I like that Giants over San Francisco pick. On its surface, I was surprised by it, but you make like the argument the Giants are strong on offense, and their defense is the weaker part. So it's a strength against strength matchup. If they can find that one hole at the cornerback position on the Niners, I could somehow see them winning. But that'll be TJ thinks you're crazy for having that happen. But
he says I have them in the Super Bowl. We haven't gotten to that yet. We'll see.
Yeah. So I mean, if you had the Giants in the Super Bowl, I think that might be a little bit crazy, but we're not there yet. So we'll see what happens. But my last 2 games, so I have Chiefs and Colts in the AFC Championship game. I have the Colts pulling the upset there. That may be a little bit of a surprise, but I just think the Colts are just such a solid, well-built team. They have very few weaknesses. They have an excellent offensive line. I think they can expose some of the holes in that Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense isn't particularly strong. And if they play ball control and kind of keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands as much as they can, they'll be able to wear down the defense and maybe have the ball for one last drive where Phillip Rivers gets the team into field goal range and sends them to a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, it won't be Adam Vinatieri kicking that game-winning field goal in this scenario. It'll probably be Chase McLaughlin or Rodrigo Blankenship, but yeah, Colts could pull the upset. I wouldn't count the Chiefs out, but I'm going with the Colts. And I have the Buccaneers beating the Saints in what should be a really exciting divisional matchup in that NFC Championship game. I just think that the Buccaneers should be that much better with Tom Brady at the helm. They have all the tools needed to beat a team like the Saints. But I mean, a Brady Breeze matchup in a championship game would be something to watch. So I hope that does end up happening.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, Colts over Chiefs would be surprising, but wouldn't. I guess surprising to some people. Maybe not to me. Despite Mahomes being so great, I just think the Colts probably have the best roster overall in the NFL. Like they're just terrific. And maybe the Buccaneers. I think it's pretty close. So for me in the NFC Championship, or let's go AFC Championship, I have Chiefs versus Colts. I have the Chiefs winning 38-31. It's gonna be a close game. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if the Colts pull the upset, but I would trust Patrick Mahomes over Phillip Rivers at this stage of Rivers' career. And I think that, the Colts, their corners aren't like that great. Like maybe Xavier Rhodes, if he reverts back to what he was, that could really change things a lot. But if he's like average, I think that could really hurt the Colts trying to stop Mahomes. And we saw the Colts go to Kansas City a couple years ago, and there was that gif with Andrew Luck, and looks like this frostbite on his beard. It's going to be super cold in Kansas City, and a Colts dome team going to Kansas City in what should be frigid weather. I think that could put the Chiefs over the top, but we'll see. In the NFC Championship, the Buccaneers versus the Giants. TJ, I don't have the Giants beating the Buccaneers. I was kind of tempted because Tom Brady does have a bad history versus the Giants in the playoffs, Super Bowl, obviously. This time he sees in the NFC Championship, but it's not Eli Manning. It's Daniel Jones, and it's I think it's the inexperience that might get Daniel Jones here. I just don't think that the Giants. I love the Giants offense. I just don't think it could keep up with Tom Brady. I think Brady's kind of a monster year with all of his weapons, with all of his determination to prove that he can win without Belichick. I just think that Brady could have an MVP type season. Wouldn't surprise me if he won MVP, and I think he might be a good bet to win MVP just based on that. The Buccaneers winning 34-20.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. So we both have the Bucs in the Super Bowl. I'm glad we don't have the exact same Super Bowl matchup, because I want to say that's happened like I can't remember how many years that's happened, but I think it's happened like probably 3 of the last 7 years we've had the same Super Bowl matchup. But at least this one's different. So I have Colts versus Bucs at the end. I think that's going to be a really great Super Bowl matchup. Again, 2 veteran quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers playing for his first title. Tom Brady playing for his 7th, and one with the new team. So I definitely, as much as I'd like to see Phillip Rivers get a title, I just think the Buccaneers, it's their year. They have great coaching. They have a fantastic offense. They've fixed all their problems on that side of the ball in free agency and during the draft. I mean, hypothetically, provided the guys pan out. And defense, I think they're underrated. I think they'll be able to do enough to disrupt Phillip Rivers and cover the Colts receivers. So I have the Buccaneers winning in the Super Bowl. It'll be a big time win for Tom Brady. It'll prove that he can win without Bill Belichick. And on the off chance that Cam Newton does get the Patriots to the Super Bowl, I would also be happy to see Belichick versus Brady and Cam Newton against the Bucs. But I think I can live with Bucs Colts Super Bowl, and I think the Bucs ultimately come out on top there.
That'd be interesting. Brady versus Belichick. That'd be tremendous. I think that would be my favorite pre-hype Super Bowl ever. Like, I'm usually not for like Super Bowl hype, but like Brady versus Belichick would be something else. That'd be one for the ages. I have the Buccaneers winning as well over the Chiefs. And this is a game I really stewed over for a while. Like I knew I was going to have these two teams meet in the Super Bowl, but I didn't know how I was going to play it out. The more I thought about it is like, the formula, as I said before, to beat these elite quarterbacks is to pressure them as much as possible with 4 men, no blitzing. And then on top of that, you have to outscore them in the fourth quarter. The 49ers did the first part last year. They really got to Mahomes. Eric Fisher was overwhelmed by Nick Bosa. It was just a nightmare game for him. And the Chiefs were down and entering the fourth quarter. And if the 49ers had scored at all in the fourth quarter, they probably would have won. but Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't do that. He just wasn't up to it. But there's a big difference between Garoppolo and Tom Brady. Even at 43, I think Tom Brady's still better, and he's got better weapons. He's got Chris Godwin, he's got Mike Evans, he's got Robert Gronkowski, OJ Howard if he's not traded, and then you have Cameron Brate. Plus maybe one of his running backs steps up, and I like the offensive line they have there. So I love the Tampa Bay offense, and I think that with their great pass rush, they have JPP, they have Barrett, Shaq Barrett. They have and they have Ndamukong Suh, and they have Vita Vea, like the great defensive line, and I think their secondary is going to improve a lot as well. I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster overall, and I know this is in Tampa. A team has never hosted the Super Bowl before, but there's a first time for everything, and I think that if there's going to be a first time for everything, it might as well be Tom Brady winning it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been there, he's done it. He's the type of guy that could knock off Mahomes and just say like, hey, you got a little bit of a way to go before you're the best quarterback of all time. And, with as much success as Mahomes has had, I think that it's certainly possible that he will slip up at some point, or maybe not him, but the team around him. So I think we're both on the same page with the Buccaneers being Super Bowl MVP or Super Bowl contenders. I could not think of the word contenders for the life of me. So I think that I think that they'll ultimately win. I could also see the Chiefs making the Super Bowl, but what I tend to do is if I'm already predetermined that I'm going to have a certain team win the Super Bowl, I pick the team in the other championship game. I pick an upset. So just so I'm different. So I pick the Colts to be different, and also because I think they can beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think it's good to be different. It's more impressive if you get it right. That's something that a friend of mine who works for a couple of newspapers told me ahead of the Colts Bears Super Bowl last decade. Like, I didn't know who I was going to pick to win. I was like, probably the Colts, but I could see the Bears defense really doing well against Manning. And he's like, well, if you pick the Bears and they win, you'll look better. So I'm like, all right, I'll pick the Bears. And that was a stupid thing, but it does work out if it wins. So I could definitely see that happening. So to review, you had I'm typing this out now. You had in the playoffs, you had Chiefs, Ravens, Colts, Bills as your top four teams, right? And then you had Steelers, Patriots, and then Denver, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, in the NFC, you had number one, you had Tampa. Number two, you had Seattle. Number three, you had who was it?
Green Bay.
Green Bay. Number four was the Giants, I believe.
Yep.
Who was number five?
I had Saints at 5, Vikings at 6, and 49ers at 7.
There we go. So I should add that, and now it's there because we had a request for a banner. So there's your teams. To review mine, I had the Chiefs, Colts, Ravens, Bills as my top four AFC. Patriots, Browns, Steelers as the wild cards, and then in the NFC had Buccaneers, 49ers, Giants, Vikings. Then the Saints, Seahawks, and Cardinals. And we had you had Tampa Bay beating the Colts in the Super Bowl. I had the Tampa Bay beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So let's talk about some Super Bowl odds. So one thing that stands out to me is like you have the Colts winning the Super Bowl. They're 24-1 to win the Super Bowl. I think that's pretty good. Like, I mean, do you think that's something you bet on?
Yeah, I think I will bet on that. So I actually have the Buccaneers. I had them at I think I have them at 56-1 because I bet them before Tom Brady signed there.
So gross.
That was my move. My move of the offseason was to bet on that. So I have them and the Giants at long odds. So I think if I went with the Colts, I think realistically, they're probably the only team in the AFC that could knock off the Ravens or the Chiefs, provided that all breaks well for the Colts. So at 24-1, I like them a lot. I would definitely consider betting on them because I think it's possible that they could go to the Super Bowl and the Bucs could go to the Super Bowl, and then I'd be golden. I'd be in great shape.
Yeah. So Jimmy Kidwell says you guys are way too high in the Colts. I really don't think so. I mean, their roster is great. Like they have a great offensive line. They added to the receiving core with Michael Pittman, and they also have Paris Campbell coming back from kind of an injury-ridden rookie year. So joining T.Y. Hilton, they drafted Jonathan Taylor to join Marlon Mack, so the running game should be good. They traded for DeForest Buckner, who's one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. Their secondary has some good players. Like we don't know if they're going to play well. Like Malik Hooker. Tends to get injured a lot. Xavier Rhodes was banged up last year. So if he's healthier, he'll be a lot better. And of course, they have Darius Leonard at linebacker. Phillip Rivers might be a question mark, but he's definitely going to be better than Jacoby Brissett was last year. And the Colts, before Brissett got injured last year, they look like they're going to win the division. And so with Rivers as an upgrade plus Buckner and a better receiving core and better running game, like I think it's a no-brainer to have the Colts win at least 10 games. I think they could win 13 games. I love their upside. So that would be my answer for the Colts.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think you can find some weaknesses on the Colts. I mean, you might have some concern about Phillip Rivers, like you mentioned, but again, I think he'd be better than Brissett. And even if he isn't, you can always go back to Brissett, who might be better off if healthy. I think if you look at the defense, the cornerback group is a concern. If Xavier Rhodes doesn't pan out, then you're talking about relying on Kenny Moore, who's great in the slot, and is really, since joining the Colts, has become one of the better players in the league at his position. But they can't really get by with just him, and Rock Ya-Sin, who's going into his second year, was solid as a rookie. Should get better, but they don't have a ton of depth there. I could see them, if they start the season well and they're doing well on offense, maybe making an upgrade to the secondary at the trade deadline if a really good corner comes available. But I think those are really the only two holes I see, though. I think they have an excellent front seven, and most importantly for me, their offensive line is incredible. And provided that they all stay healthy up front, Phillip Rivers has not played with a group that talented before in his life. He's going to have a lot more time to make decisions. And it may take him a little while to get used to that new internal clock, but I think he's gonna be much better off because of that.
Yeah, it's going to be refreshing for him. Like really, I mean, his offensive lines with the Chargers have been so bad over the years. It's going to be so great. I just hope their offensive line doesn't get a lot of injuries. Like that would be the one downfall for the Colts. But I mean, otherwise they look great to me. The one other question we have with TJ saying the Giants making the championship games is a huge stretch. I really don't think so. And they really feel like the same thing as the Eagles a few years ago. I remember the Eagles were they were like 6-10 or something like that in Carson Wentz's first year. And then they exploded their second year and they won the Super Bowl, even though Wentz went down in December. They really remind me of the Eagles of 2017. I think the Giants with a quarterback in his second year, usually we see these teams with quarterbacks in their second year really explode. Like I just mentioned, the Eagles, the Rams went from 4-12 to winning the division with Jared Goff, who's not even that good. You just see it all the time with these teams. Like Russell Wilson was the Super Bowl in his second year. The Giants, they have a good offensive line now with Andrew Thomas, and I think that's very important. Darius Slayton was great in his rookie year, and he's just going to get better. So they have a lot of offensive weapons, and people forget that Saquon Barkley got hurt in week 3 last year, and he came back, I believe, in week 7 or week 8, but he was initially slated for an 8-game absence. And he came back early, and like by the time those 8 games expired, he played a lot better. And so I think we're going to have a Barkley at 100% this year, which we haven't seen since week 3 last year. Actually, maybe toward the end, but definitely since week 3 last year. And then defensively, I think getting James Bradbury is a big boon for them. Like it's a huge upgrade to corner. At linebacker, they added Blake Martinez, and people forget that they traded for Leonard Williams last year. They have Dexter Lawrence as well on the defensive line, so they're going to be great against the run. Like they were great against the run last year. The problem was they got torched a lot in the secondary, but they added McKinney, they added Bradbury, Blake Martinez is good in coverage. Like their pass defense may not be great this year, but I think it's going to be at least average. So I think there's so much upside with the Giants, especially with Daniel Jones having more experience.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to 2 things. I think it's going to come down to, does Daniel Jones progress, which I think will happen? And then the other thing will be, does their secondary get better enough for them to make a deep playoff run? I'm more skeptical of that happening. I love James Bradbury as much as the next guy, and I really like Xavier McKinney too, but I still think there are some holes to exploit back there. That's why I had them making the playoffs, but losing in the first round. They also drew a tough matchup with the Saints in my bracket. But I think it's fair to be high on the Giants too. I mean, this defense, even if it's bad, not great against the pass, it will shut down run games. So, I think that's enough to trust them. And their offense looks really good. They may be like a 1 year away from being a true Super Bowl contender, but I agree that they remind me to an extent of the Eagles from 2017, 2018. They definitely have some underrated potential. And I think a lot of that is because of Daniel Jones. People really like to make fun of Dave Gettleman for taking him 6th overall, but of the quarterbacks in that draft class that were available, Kyler Murray obviously went 1st overall. Jones has shown some promise. Dwayne Haskins has struggled, and Drew Lock was only healthy for 4 games last year. So it looks like he may have made the right decision after all.
Yeah, my criticism was that I thought he could get Josh Allen at 6 and then get Daniel Jones at 17, which I still think he could have done. Maybe trade up for a little bit from 17. But if Dexter Lawrence keeps getting better, and like he had a great rookie year, like if he keeps getting better, then it won't look as bad because obviously, you still get your defensive stud and you get your franchise quarterback. So, Gettleman, I think looking back, he definitely did a lot better than people gave him credit for after that draft. So, and what TJ says, like the defense is horrible. I really don't think so. I think they have a great run defense, as I said, and pass defense average or maybe below average, but it's definitely not going to be nearly as bad as it was last year. And the Giants have 140 to 1 to win the Super Bowl on Bookmaker. I think that's a steal. They probably, gun to my head, they probably won't win it. But 140 to 1, I'm definitely bet that. I already bet that. I might double down on it. It just looks too good to be true. And with your Colts to 24 to 1, I like as well. I'm probably going to bet that. My question to you is, so you have Tampa at like 1 billion to 1, right? So they're currently 14 to 1 at Bookmaker. Would you still bet that?
If I didn't already have a bet on Tampa, I would still probably bet that. I wouldn't put like a ton on it, but I think they're a really good bet to make the playoffs, make some noise, and I think there's a good chance they ultimately reach the Super Bowl. I wouldn't guarantee it. If you could get them at 56 to 1 again, that would be a no-brainer. But yeah. I don't think 14 to 1 is a bad bet. Usually with Super Bowl odds, I mean, you're going to have to pay a premium for the teams that are the best. It's just that's the way it goes. And I know the Chiefs are the favorite right now. I'm assuming at about 5 to 1 odds, depending on where you look. So like if you're getting the Buccaneers at 14 to 1, as opposed to the Chiefs at 5 to 1-ish, I would definitely take the Buccaneers. I think that's a solid bet. It's definitely worthwhile because I think they got a shot.
Yeah, for a team I think is the best in the conference, like 14 to 1 seems pretty solid to me. It's not 56 to 1, but 14 to 1 is still pretty good. The Saints, I think the 49ers are the favorite in the NFC at 9.5 to 1. I don't like those odds. You have the Saints at 10 to 1, which is not great either. A little bit better than the 49ers, but it's still not something I bet on. But so of the NFC teams, the NFC favorites, I think Tampa at 14 to 1 is the best number. Maybe you can find like a 15 to 1 or 16 to 1 out there somewhere. But still, I think 14 to 1 is the best number. And because we both have the Chiefs progressing pretty far in our playoff predictions, I have to ask you about the Chiefs at 5.4 to 1. On Bookmaker. Actually, you said the Chiefs are probably the favorites, and they are by a slim margin. They're plus 542. The Ravens are plus 547, so which is very surprising to me. They're so close. So what do you think about the Chiefs at 5.4 to 1? Like, obviously, you don't have them winning the Super Bowl, but they obviously could. Would you consider betting that?
I would consider it. But given how hard it is to repeat as a Super Bowl champion, I'm not sure they'll quite get there this year. So where they're the favorites, I may not go for them. But also at the same time, they're a very safe bet. So if you believe in the Chiefs, there's no reason not to bet at that number. I mean, again, the payoff isn't that great, but you're betting on the best quarterback in the league, one of the best coaches in the league. The only issue with them is they have some holes on the defensive side of the ball, particularly in the secondary, especially after losing Kendall Fuller. But their offense will keep them in games. So I don't hate the idea of betting on them, but I would rather bet on the Buccaneers at 14-1 or some of the other NFC teams, just because I think the odds are better and I think they all have a chance to knock off the Chiefs.
Yeah, my instinct says I shouldn't do it, but last year I had the Chiefs were 8-1, I think, and I didn't have them. And I did have the 49ers at 40-1. And ahead of the Super Bowl, I was talking to my dad, and he's like, oh, congratulations on the 49ers, because he knew I had that bet. I'm like, yeah, I can hedge. And he's like, so you think the 49ers would beat the Chiefs, right? I'm like, no, I have the Chiefs winning. He's like, oh, did you bet the Chiefs too? And I'm like, no. And he's like, why? he's like, why didn't you do that? And I'm like, because they're 8-1. He's like, still though, like if you think the team's going to win the Super Bowl or at least get there, even if, like a plus 542, it's not great. Like I think you can find a plus 650 out there somewhere. It's like not that much better, but still obviously better. I think if you're pretty confident a team has a great chance to win the Super Bowl, I think that you should probably bet it. I'm not going to go crazy with it or anything, just to make sure I have it and I don't have to scramble to hedge or anything again.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think where the Chiefs have such a high chance of making the Super Bowl, because realistically, I only see them, the Ravens, and the Colts as Super Bowl threats this year. I don't see another team that can really make the run. Like I like the Patriots and Steelers and Bills as much as the next guy, but I think they all have holes that won't let them get through those guys. So I'm comfortable. I'm probably going to bet the Colts at 24-1. I'm comfortable betting the Chiefs as well, because then I feel that if you bet the Colts and Chiefs, you have a very, very good chance of having at least the AFC representative in the Super Bowl at some sort of bet level. So, it may not be the best number in the world on the Chiefs, but like you said, you're kind of pre-hedging a little bit. So I don't hate that strategy at all.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the other numbers of teams that we had in the playoffs. Like I was thinking about okay, maybe the Browns, like as stupid as it is to bet the Browns to win the Super Bowl. I do have them in the playoffs, and I thought I'd get like 50-1, but it's only 25-1. So it's not even that great. I don't understand why that number is like that. Although I will say that you have Denver in the playoffs. They're 60-1. So I think that's okay. Steelers at 30-1 is fine as well. But yeah, I agree with you. I think if you bet the Colts and the Chiefs, you can have the AFC representative, and at that point you can hedge if you don't have the NFC representative. But in your scenario, if you bet the Colts to win the Super Bowl, you're going to have either 24-1 or 56-1, which would be pretty sweet. So I'm kind of jealous of that.
Yeah, if I end up with that Super Bowl, that would probably be the most easy money Super Bowl of all time, and I probably bet on a bunch of ridiculous prop bets. Though I did hit on the Patrick Mahomes first Super Bowl touchdown last year on my prop bet, so hopefully we'll have another good prop bet once the Super Bowl rolls around this time.
Yeah, that was a great one. That was awesome. All right, yeah, I guess that's it. Do you have anything else you want to mention?
No, I'm pretty good at this point. I'm just excited that we're talking about playoffs, and training camp is scheduled to open 3 weeks from today. So we got some live football, hopefully, knock on wood, around the corner.
Yeah, can't wait. Given our situation, it's going to be a lot of fun. The sports in general. I mean, baseball starts in what 2.5 weeks or so. So that'll be fun. So I just can't wait for real sports to happen again. All right. Anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I'm always talking football. I'm always hypothesizing that I'm going to tweet out my golf picks of the week, and I never do. This week I will try to do that. I had Bryson DeChambeau winning last week. Granted, it was like tiny odds, and he was the favorite, but I'll have some lineup for this week's DraftKings golf contest too, and got plenty of Redskins stuff coming out. We got all sorts of things going on there. I got a roster projection for them coming too. That should be up tomorrow. So follow me on Twitter, and you'll be able to find all that content there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll have golf picks as well. DraftKings has $1 million to first tournament for this weekend's golf tournament. So throw one lineup in there. You never know what could happen. So I'll be probably throwing in 3 or 4 lineups myself. All right. I have season previews on the site, waltzerfootball.com, fantasy football content as well. We're going to get really ramp into that now that I've done the season previews. And I'm going to be in Vegas next week. So we'll be off next week. But I will I'll definitely mention some of the best, bets you can probably find in Vegas, even though it's might be difficult to travel, but still, if you can get out there, you can probably get some good deals on betting picks. So, all right, I guess that's it. I will talk to you in 2 weeks.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.